Let's get something straight. Magnetism isn't about being the most attractive. Respect isn't about being the most successful, and power? It's not always the loudest voice in the room. Sometimes, it's the quietest, the one who speaks slowly, moves with purpose, doesn't chase attention because he knows he doesn't need it. That's the man everyone notices, even when he says nothing. We live in a world obsessed with visibility, the highlight reel, the brand, the aesthetic. But the Stoics taught something different. They weren't interested in impressing crowds. They were interested in building character that speaks when you don't, because when your habits are aligned, when your energy is anchored, when your decisions are rooted in self-leadership, you don't have to perform for respect, you just become it. Magnetism isn't about trying to be interesting, it's about being interested in mastering yourself. People feel that, it radiates without effort, and it makes people lean in, even if they don't know why. So in this video, we're not going to talk about posture tricks or clever quotes. We're going to talk about habits that sharpen you, that settle your mind, that demand no recognition, but command it anyway. Habits that, over time, make you the kind of man people trust, respect, and gravitate toward, without you ever having to raise your voice. This won't be sexy, it won't trend, but it will change how people feel around you, and how you feel about yourself. And that's the difference between the man who performs and the one who is unmistakably solid. Let's break down the 10 Stoic habits, starting with the most underrated one of all. Habit 1. Pausing before you speak. You want to know who's respected in a room? The one who doesn't rush to speak, who listens without the need to respond, who waits, not because he's slow, but because he's measured. You don't have to talk less to be wise. You just have to pause long enough to speak with precision. The Stoics were masters of this. They didn't waste words. They didn't speak to be heard. They spoke to be understood. And in that silence, everyone leaned in. When you pause before you speak, people can feel it. They sense the internal restraint. They notice the gap. And in that gap, they feel weight, because we're surrounded by over-explainers, oversharers, overreactors. But when someone speaks only when needed, and with deliberate energy, it rewires the entire room. It creates space. And that space, that's what makes people listen harder. That's magnetic, that's respected, and that's why the first habit is a spiritual discipline, not just a social tactic. Habit 2. The discipline of simplicity. You don't need more to be respected. You need less, done better, in thought, in speech, in goals, in style. You know the man who's clearly trying too hard? Flashing, performing, always reaching? He's noisy, and people see through it. Now think of the opposite, the man who dresses clean but minimal, who doesn't explain everything, who isn't obsessed with proving he's high value. He just is. That man's energy is simple. But it hits harder. Simplicity isn't lack, it's clarity. It says, I know what matters. I'm not chasing everything. I've subtracted the noise. And the result? People trust him more. They feel calm around him. They sense he's not living reactively, but intentionally. The Stoics didn't collect things. They stripped them away because they knew that power doesn't come from addition. It comes from alignment. That means your daily choices, your appearance, your schedule, all reflect who you're becoming. No excess, no clutter, no complication, just essence. So ask yourself, where are you performing instead of aligning? What are you doing that looks impressive but feels heavy? What are you carrying that's not yours to carry anymore? Because the moment you drop it, the moment you cut the noise, you don't become less, you become undeniably clear. And clarity is rare, which makes it magnetic. Habit 3. Keep the promises you make to yourself. You don't become magnetic by being loud. You become magnetic by being reliable, especially to yourself. Here's something nobody teaches you. The fastest way to lose respect is to keep breaking the promises you whisper to yourself. You say you'll wake up early. You don't. You say you'll stop texting her. You do. You say you'll be focused this week. You're scrolling by noon. And at first, it feels small, forgivable, normal. But over time, every broken promise chips away at your center. Not just your habits, your identity. Because how can you be magnetic if your own reflection doesn't trust you? You see, we often focus on how others perceive us, But magnetism doesn't start there. It starts inside. When you do what you said you'd do, when you show up when no one's clapping, when your words aren't just noise, they're contracts, that's what builds real presence. Because there's nothing louder than a man who quietly honors himself. Let's be real. People feel it when you're self-aligned. You don't have to convince them. They pick it up in your posture, your tone, your timing. There's no rush, no thirst, no second guessing. You're not trying to prove anything. You're just following through again and again. The Stoics called this integritas, inner wholeness, not perfection, wholeness, meaning the outside matches the inside. Your decisions match your words. Your life matches your values. And when that happens, you become trustable, not just to others, to yourself. And that kind of self-trust, it radiates more strength than any flex ever could. So here's the practice. Start small. Say you'll journal today? Do it. Say you'll train for 20 minutes? Do it. Say you'll say nothing instead of arguing back? Do that too. Don't overcommit. Respect builds when you follow through, not when you make grand declarations. Keep score, not to judge yourself, but to build proof. I said I would. I did. I trust me. Because every kept promise is a brick in the foundation of your personal gravity. And when that foundation is strong, people feel it, even if you never say a word. Habit 4. Stay calm in emotional chaos. You don't need to raise your voice to raise your value. Calm men rule unstable rooms. You've seen it happen. The energy shifts, someone gets triggered, words fly, emotions spike, and everyone's scrambling for control. Except him, that one man, still, centered, unmoved. He's not cold, he's not detached, he's just trained. And in that moment, he becomes the anchor everyone instinctively looks to. Because in a world full of reactors, stillness is a superpower. Let's be clear. Calm doesn't mean passive. It doesn't mean weak. It doesn't mean letting people walk over you. Calm means you don't give your power away cheaply. It means your nervous system doesn't dance to every beat the world plays. It means you have the emotional control to lead, even when others are losing their minds. The Stoics trained for this, not for silence, but for self-command. They believed that true freedom wasn't about outer control. It was about inner mastery in the heat of conflict. Because if you can't stay composed when it matters most, you don't own your strength. Your emotions do. Here's the reality. People are watching how you handle pressure, in arguments, in setbacks, in disrespect, in rejection. And every reaction tells the room who really has the power, not the loudest, not the angriest, the calmest, because calmness says, I know who I am. This moment doesn't shake me. You don't have access to my peace. And that energy, it's magnetic. People trust it. They feel safer around it. And more importantly, they respect it. You want to build this habit? Breathe first. A deep inhale is your pause button. Create space. You don't need to reply instantly. Calm men use time to their advantage. Train mentally. Visualize pressure. Rehearse your stillness. Practice responding, not reacting. Because when chaos hits, you don't rise to the occasion. You fall to your level of training. So train calm, live calm, lead calm, and you'll find that the loudest rooms bow to the man who doesn't flinch. Habit 5. Speak less, say more. Words don't impress people, precision does. There's a quiet power in the man who doesn't talk too much, not because he's shy, but because he's deliberate. He doesn't rush to fill silence. He doesn't ramble to prove he's smart. He doesn't wrap insecurity in 1,000 words. When he speaks, people stop. They lean in because they've learned something. He only speaks when it matters, and when it matters, he says exactly what needs to be said, and nothing more. Most people talk to be heard, but the Stoic speaks to be understood. He knows the weight of words. He knows that every sentence either builds connection or leaks power. He doesn't just talk like a man. He talks like a leader. Here's why this matters. In a loud world, brevity signals confidence. When you don't over-explain, you signal certainty. When you don't speak over people, you show control. And when your words land with clarity and intention, you don't need volume. You don't need flair. Your speech carries energy. That's what makes you magnetic. Here's what this habit looks like in real life. You stop qualifying everything. You say, I might be wrong, but sorry if this sounds weird. You drop filler language. Like, kinda, sorta. You speak slowly. Let pauses breathe. Let silence do its job. You eliminate exaggeration. Hyperbole is insecurity in disguise. You replace reaction with reflection. You don't rush to respond. You frame, then deliver. You don't need to be mysterious. You just need to be measured. People don't remember men who talk the most. They remember the ones who speak with weight. That's what Stoics mastered. They didn't try to sound wise. They trained their mind to be still. So when words did come, they meant something. So here's the practice. Before you speak, ask yourself, is this necessary? Is this useful? Is this building or burning? And if the answer isn't clear, maybe silence is the stronger move. Because when a man knows how to say less, his energy says more than words ever could. Habit 6. Own your presence without forcing it. The strongest men don't chase the room. They anchor it. You can't fake presence. You can try, with louder jokes, exaggerated gestures, constant interruptions, but people feel it. That forced energy, that hunger to be seen. True presence isn't loud. It's felt. It radiates from a calm nervous system. It shows in your posture, relaxed but alert. It lives in your eyes, steady, unfazed, quietly observant. A man who owns his presence doesn't try to dominate. He doesn't crowd others with energy. He holds space and lets others reveal themselves in that silence. He doesn't need to convince the room of anything, because he knows exactly who he is. Here's what that looks like. You make eye contact, but you don't stare people down. You stand or sit tall, without fidgeting or shrinking. You listen more than you talk. You move with intent, not urgency. You respond on your time, not the timeline of others' insecurities. Why does this matter? Because people subconsciously respect grounded energy. When you're at ease in yourself, when you're not scrambling to fill gaps with noise, when you're comfortable with your own stillness, others instinctively lower their guard. They feel safe. They listen more. They take you more seriously. It's not about posture hacks or alpha signals. It's about inner mastery, which shows up without words. That's why Stoics spent less time performing and more time cultivating self-command, because the room always mirrors your inner world. If you're tense, the room gets tense. If you're solid, the room feels stable. Want to build this? Practice deliberate presence. Walk slower than you feel comfortable. Take pauses in conversations. Get comfortable with direct eye contact. Remind yourself you don't owe anyone instant reactions, because the man who doesn't rush to be seen is the one people naturally watch. Habit 7. Build unshakable routines. Your power in the world starts with your discipline when no one's watching. Everyone wants to look disciplined in public. The cold showers, the early mornings, the grind talk. But here's the truth. Discipline isn't performance. It's what you do when no one cares, no one claps, and no one is watching. Your routines shape your presence more than any social skill. Because when you consistently show up for yourself, you build a confidence that doesn't need external validation. You know you're the kind of man who follows through. You've stacked proof of your own reliability, and that quiet self-trust? People feel it in the way you stand, the way you speak, the way you navigate pressure. Most people live reactively. Their habits depend on mood. Their focus depends on dopamine. Their discipline depends on applause. But the Stoic path is different. It's about choosing what matters and showing up day after day, whether you feel like it or not. Because here's the raw truth. Your reputation is built in public, but your identity is built in private. What does this look like? A daily training or movement practice, not for looks, but for inner strength. A consistent morning ritual that anchors you before the world pulls at you. A reading habit that sharpens your mind when others are distracting theirs. A discipline around phone use, entertainment consumption. So you remain the owner of your attention. It's not glamorous. It's not instantly rewarding. But over time, people sense something different about you. You're less frantic, less reactive, more deliberate, more stable. They might not know your routines, but they feel the power of them in your energy. That's the Stoic edge. You don't broadcast your discipline, you embody it. because the man who leads himself quietly commands respect loudly. Habit 8. Guard your energy from drama. Chaos loves company. Discipline loves boundaries. There's always someone trying to pull you into noise. A gossip, a petty fight, a social media argument, a useless debate about things that don't build anything. And most people fall for it because it feels important in the moment, because they crave stimulation, because drama gives them the illusion of relevance. But the Stoic man? He doesn't bite. He knows his energy is expensive. He knows every reaction costs him focus, clarity, and peace. So he guards his mind the same way a warrior guards his gate. Here's why it matters. When you engage in drama, you tell the world your energy is cheap. You teach people they can drag you into nonsense anytime they want. You let others set your emotional tone instead of owning it yourself. And people feel that weakness. They might not say it, but they notice the way you get defensive over small things, the way you can't let a slight go, the way you jump into every argument to prove you're right. It signals insecurity. It signals lack of direction. It signals your peace is negotiable. But the man who refuses to engage, who doesn't react to every jab, every rumor, every call out, he stands apart. He moves differently. People don't pull him into the mud. They watch him from the sidelines, wondering how he remains untouchable. This isn't about being passive. It's about being selective. It's knowing the difference between a fight that matters and a distraction designed to pull you off your path. So here's the practice. Before responding, ask, does this build me? Does this build them? Does this build anything? If the answer is no, walk away, let them spin, let them gossip, let them react. Keep building, keep moving, keep your focus sacred, because you can't build a legacy in a room full of noise. You can't sharpen your sword in the middle of chaos. And you can't become magnetic by constantly chasing every spark of drama. Protect your peace, because in the quiet, you build the presence others respect forever. Habit 9. Practice consistent humility. The man who never needs to prove he's great becomes the one others quietly admire. There's a dangerous myth out there that you have to brag, posture, and flex to be respected. But the truth? The men who talk the loudest about how great they are often the most fragile, because deep respect doesn't come from boasting. It comes from embodiment. Humility isn't weakness. It's confidence with deep roots. It means you don't need to remind people of your value. Your actions speak for you. Your presence radiates certainty. You know your strengths. You know your edges. You don't hide them, but you don't inflate them either. The Stoics understood this well. They believed the wise man learns from everyone and never assumes he's beyond mistake. That means listening first. It means being open to correction. It means seeking to understand rather than dominate. Here's why this habit is magnetic. Most people can't do it. Their ego is loud. Their insecurities beg for applause. Their worth depends on praise. But when you show up with quiet confidence and humility, people trust you more. They let their guard down. They want to be around you because they feel seen, not dominated. Here's how to practice it. Share credit freely. Lift others up. Ask questions instead of always giving answers. Admit when you don't know something and be eager to learn. Stay rooted in curiosity, not certainty, because humility isn't thinking less of yourself. It's thinking of yourself less. It's knowing your place in the world and remembering there's always more to grow, more to learn, more to build. And that quiet, consistent humility, it becomes a beacon. People respect you more because they don't feel like you're always trying to prove something. They feel safe, grounded, and inspired around you. And that is a magnetism that never fades. The more you focus on proving yourself, the less people actually believe you. But the moment you drop the act, when you stop seeking validation and keep building, learning, growing quietly, that is when people start paying attention. Because humility doesn't shrink your presence, it clarifies it. Habit 10. Lead yourself first. Respect begins in the mirror. If you can't lead yourself, you can't expect others to follow. If you want respect from others, if you want your presence to carry real weight, if you want magnetism that lasts long after you leave the room, start by leading yourself. Most men want to lead the world, direct their relationships, build teams, shape movements. But their personal life? It's chaos. No discipline, no consistency, no control over their impulses. And you can't build lasting power on a foundation of chaos. The Stoics believed leadership began internally. Your habits, your mindset, your emotional regulation. If you can't manage your own moods, your own urges, your own fears, how will you lead anyone else? This is what separates loud men from respected men. Loud men demand followers. Stoic men earn them by modeling mastery over themselves first. Here's how to practice this habit. Keep your daily commitments small but sacred. Build mental frameworks for pressure moments. Check your impulses before acting on them. Be consistent when it's boring, because that's when real leadership is built. Because the way you show up when no one's watching, that's the raw material of your legacy. You don't need to control others. You need to master your own choices, responses, and discipline. Because the man who leads himself commands the room without ever asking for permission. You don't become magnetic by demanding respect. You become magnetic by becoming someone worth respecting. These 10 habits aren't hacks. They're not party tricks to impress crowds. They're disciplines. They're the bones of your character. They're the foundation of a man who doesn't need applause to keep building. Look around. Most men are chasing noise. More followers, more validation, more quick hits of attention. But you, if you take the Stoic path, build depth, you become the man who pauses before he speaks, holds space calmly in chaos, keeps his word, first to himself, then to others, guards his energy from drama, leads himself before he leads anyone else. These habits, layered over days, weeks, years, they do something rare. They create trust. People feel it. They don't know why, but they feel safer around you. More grounded, more open. Because your energy isn't scattered, your focus isn't cheap, your attention isn't for sale. The Stoics knew. The man who governs himself becomes impossible to govern from the outside. That doesn't mean you never struggle. It means you struggle with clarity. You carry your discipline into every room, every decision, every relationship. Not because you're perfect, but because you're anchored. You don't need to prove your worth. You don't need to brag about your discipline. You just live it, and the world notices, even when you're silent. You don't transform by doing everything at once. You transform by doing small things, consistently, until they're part of you. Most men want it all today. They hear about discipline, calm, presence, and they try to change everything overnight. But that path leads to burnout. Because real change, the kind that sticks, happens quietly. Here's the truth. You build magnetism the same way you build muscle. Rep by rep, day by day. Showing up even when you don't feel it. No hype, no audience, just steady, silent practice. So here's your roadmap. 1. Pick one habit. Don't try to master all 10. Pick the one that resonated deepest. Maybe it's speaking less. Maybe it's guarding your energy. Maybe it's leading yourself first. 2. Shrink the commitment. Make it so small you can't fail. If it's pausing before you speak, commit to pausing once in every conversation. If it's keeping your promises, start with one promise a day. 3. Stack wins. Every day you follow through. Write it down. Don't break the chain. Momentum isn't built on motivation. It's built on evidence that you're the kind of man who shows up. 4. Reflect, then expand. After 30 days, review what's solid, what still needs work, where do you feel stronger, then add the next habit. This is slow work, but it's the only kind of work that lasts. Because building a magnetic presence isn't about a viral moment. It's about becoming the man others respect instinctively, because you've earned your own respect first. The path isn't perfect, and that's what makes it powerful. Let's get something clear. You're going to slip, you'll break promises, you'll react instead of pause, you'll let your guard down, get sucked into drama, slip into old habits. That doesn't make you weak, it makes you human. Here's the Stoic truth. You don't judge yourself by how many times you fall. You judge yourself by how quickly you stand back up. Most men quit when they stumble. They confuse imperfection with failure. But Stoic discipline expects setbacks because they aren't proof you're failing, they're proof you're growing. Every stumble is a chance to pause and ask, what triggered this slip? How can I prepare better next time? Where did I ignore my own boundaries? That reflection is where discipline deepens. Here's the key. Don't get dramatic about failure. Don't throw away weeks of progress because of one bad day. Don't spiral into self-hate. Instead, come back to the work. You want respect? Start by respecting your own humanity. You want quiet magnetism? Learn to rebuild faster than you break. Because the man who never wavers doesn't exist, but the man who never stays down. That's the one people watch. That's the one who becomes unbreakable. You've heard it before. It's not how many times you fall, it's how many times you get back up. Cliché? Maybe. But behind every worn-out phrase is a truth that built empires, forged warriors, and kept Stoics steady through chaos. Resilience isn't a feeling, it's a system. Here's how you build it. 1. Pause and breathe. When you slip, don't react. Don't make dramatic vows. Don't spiral. Just pause, breathe, observe. 2. Write it down. Stoics kept journals for a reason. When you fall, write exactly what happened. Where were you? What triggered it? How did you feel before and after? 3. Refocus on the next small win. Forget perfection. Forget making up for lost time. Look for the next right action, one moment of discipline, one small promise kept. 4. Adjust the path. Maybe you were stretching too thin. Maybe your triggers were too close. Maybe your system needs tweaks. That's not weakness, that's wisdom. 5. Return without drama. Stoics didn't make grand announcements when they got back on track. They just returned, quiet, focused, steady. Because the man who learns how to return, again and again, becomes the one others can't break. And that is where true respect begins. It's not about applause. It's about looking in the mirror and feeling unshakable. You didn't come here to impress the world. You came here to build yourself. The habits we've covered, they aren't for likes. They aren't for praise. They're for that quiet moment when you look in the mirror and know, I lead myself first. Because the truth is, most people live their whole lives chasing external respect and die never earning their own. The Stoics knew the deepest discipline wasn't about controlling the world. It was about mastering your own reaction to it. They weren't trying to be admired. They were trying to become free. Free from impulsive desire. Free from reactive anger. Free from the chains of chaos that drag most men off their path. So here's the shift. Stop thinking of these habits as tactics to gain admiration. Start seeing them as tools to build a foundation of unshakable self-respect. Because the man who respects himself shows up even when no one is looking, trains his mind when the world is loud, controls his urges when the world says indulge. He doesn't just appear powerful, he is powerful from the inside out. That kind of man doesn't need to speak loudly. His presence speaks for him. That kind of man doesn't need to announce his strength. His actions prove it daily. That kind of man becomes magnetic, quietly, over time. And no one can take that away. So you've heard the habits, you've seen the path. Maybe you feel inspired. Maybe you feel overwhelmed. That's normal. Because this isn't flashy work. It's slow, steady, often invisible. But remember this. The men who built empires, led families, forged communities, they didn't do it with noise. They did it with quiet consistency. They did it with small habits, repeated daily, until they became part of their blood. Feel discouraged? Come back to the next small win. Don't wait for motivation. Don't wait for perfect conditions. Don't wait for applause. Because every day you show up for yourself is one more day you strengthen the gravity of your presence. And in time, you won't need to say a word. Your actions will speak. Your calm will steady the room. Your energy will announce you before your voice does. That's Stoic magnetism. It's built, it's earned, it's yours to claim. So close this video, take a breath, and begin quietly, because the world doesn't need another man performing power. It needs one living it. Subscribe to this channel for more videos like this.